Hello. So this video is going to go over Chapter 6A, Lecture Notes for Class, and Chapter 6B will be provided on a separate video. All right, I'll probably go through this rather quickly because there's a time limit on my recording. But just to get started, you want to make sure you have the Chapter 6 Bone and Tissue Skeletal System Part A available as you go through the video. All right, the first question is, what is bone structure? Sorry. So bone is a type of connective tissue that is as strong as steel but as light as aluminum. It is made of specialized cells and protein fibers. Neither immobile or dead, bone constantly breaks down and rebuilds itself. Each bone adjusts its fit and shape during the growing process after an injury and in response to stress. All right, so for your number one question, feel free to paraphrase this. I would use the first sentence, but if you're able to write the entire statement, feel free to do so. All right, there are three types of skeletal cartilage. They are hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage. Hyaline looks like hundreds of eyes staring at you. It is a supportive tissue organ. It aids in bone development. Hyaline cartilage is also located in various locations of the body, your nasal septum, the larynx, joint surfaces, and your sternal rib margins. Elastic cartilage is a larger, irregular oval shape. It has small circles, and elastic cartilage provides support with flexibility. Located in your external ear, external auditory canal, the epiglottis, and your eustachian's tube. Fibrocartilage are layers of collagen. They support areas where there's a tensile strength, so it's like extremely strong support there. Locations would be in your intervertebral disc, the pubic symphysis, the sternoclavicle joint, as well as articular disc. Excuse me. Some characteristics of cartilage are as follows. Cartilage contains no blood vessels or nerves. Cartilage is surrounded by layers of dense regular connective tissue, referred to as the perichondrium. And then nutrients that are provided to the cartilage is diffused into the cartilage from the perichondrium, which is richly supplied with blood vessels. Question 4, what is the most abundant type of cartilage? Hyaline cartilage is the most abundant type. It covers the ends of long movable joints. Here is where a synovial joint is located in the body, and the hyaline cartilage is the type of cartilage that's located in this area. Question 5, what are the 4 types of hyaline cartilage? The first type is the articular cartilage, which, as it states on the slide, covers the ends of long movable bones and joints. The second type of hyaline cartilage is costal cartilage, connects the ribs to the sternum. Third is nasal, which supports the external nose. And then finally, the respiratory cartilage, which is the cartilage of the larynx, the trachea, and bronchi. Number 6, where is elastic cartilage located? It is only found in the external ear and in the epiglottis. Please make sure that you put a star beside that. I'm pretty sure that may be a question you may be given later. All right, looking at number 7, it's asking you to describe fibrocartilage and locations in the body. So fibrocartilage is highly compressible with great tensile strength. We talked about that tensile strength on the previous slide. That means that it provides a lot of support, resistance to the material actually breaking down under tension. It is found in the soft tissue to bone attachments. Some examples would be pubic symphysis, the annulus fibrosus of the intervertebral disc, meniscus of the knee, the TMJ, which is the temporomandibular joint. That is a tongue twister. Sorry. Just to give you some locations of where you can find it. All right, number 8. Cartilage can grow in 2 ways. List cartilage growth and provide a description. All right, the first type is going to be appositional growth. The slide states that it's cartilage forming cells in a perichondrium secreting a new matrix against the external face of an internal cartilage. Know that all bone tissue have appositional growth, but in long bones, it's where the width of the bone is increased on a pre-existing surface. Growth occurs beneath the periosteum, and then appositional growth occurs at the endosteal and periosteal surfaces. So basically, this is the type of growth that increases a bone's width. Interstitial growth is located in the lacunae bound chondrocytes, which divide and secrete new matrix. It expands the cartilage from within. Interstitial growth is in hyaline cartilage at the epiphyseal plate. It increases the length of bone. Interstitial growth only occurs as long as the hyaline is present. It cannot occur after the epiphyseal plate closes. So again, to just recap, appositional growth is a growth in the width of the bone. And interstitial growth is a growth which increases the length of the bone, again, which will only occur as long as the epiphyseal plate's hyaline cartilage is present. So technically, as you go through your growth spurts, once you reach the end of puberty, the epiphyseal plate will seal, I guess would be the term to use for that, and then growth and length will end. All right, bones are classified into 2 categories. So what they have are groupings of your bones. The first is the axle. Make sure. And the second is the appendicular. Okay, so I didn't provide you with any additional writings other than a place to write the 2 types, but off to the side, make sure you include which sections of the skeletal system are associated with each. So we have the exoskeleton, which includes the skull, the vertebral column, and the rib cage. So all of the mid area bones of the skeletal system would be classified as axal. And then appendicular consists of all the bones of the upper and lower limbs and girdles, such as the shoulder and the hip. There are 2 girdles located within your skeletal system. Excuse me. So in this slide, you see over here, the blue shows you all of the bones that are associated with the exoskeleton. And then over here, the blue identifies all that is associated with the appendicular. All right, number 10, bones are also classified by their shape. See if I can get this to move up. It's kind of blocking the picture. Well, anyway, I tried. Okay, so let's look at our bone types, or classifications by shape, I should say. All right, first we have, that you can't see in this top left corner, are flat bones. The frontal bone is an example of a flat bone that you would find within the body. You have your sutural bones or sutural bones. which are over here on our right. These lines are the locations of the sutural bones. You will learn the sutural bones and their locations. Next, you have a short bone. An example of short bones are those small bones that are located in the carpals of your wrist. Irregular bones, for example, your vertebrae. Irregular in that it has several different shapes associated with it. You have your sesamoid bone, which is like the patella, and then a long bone, which would be the femur. All right, list functions of bones. So I have provided you with spacing, and I already provided the description of each to kind of save time. So I'm just going to go A through G just to make sure that you have them filled in correctly. So the first two, A is support. Bones provide a framework that supports the body and cradles the soft organs. B is protection. The skull protects the brain, the vertebral column protects the spinal cord, and the rib cage protects the vital organs and the thorax. C is movement. Skeletal muscles attached to bones that act as levers to move the body and its parts. D would be mineral and growth factor storage. E is blood cell formation. And F is triglyceride fat formation. And then finally, G is hormone production. Bone produces osteocalcin, which is a hormone that helps regulate bone formation. It protects against obesity, glucose intolerance, and diabetes. The process, hematopoiesis, is a process by which immature precursor cells develop and mature into mature cells. All right, number 12. There are two types of bone tissue. You have compact bone and spongy bone. Just to keep it simple, I use the information that is provided on the slide. Compact bone is the dense outer layer that looks smooth and solid, and spongy bone is the internal tissue that is made up of the trabeculae. Alrighty, page 3. Number 13, bones have a membrane covering. Identify the membranes of bones. Okay, so we mentioned earlier about growth occurring in certain locations. So one of the locations was the periosteum, which is the external covering of bone, except in locations where there's a joint surface. So it's the external covering of bone. That's A. B is the endosteum, which is found on the internal surfaces of bones, covers the trabeculae of spongy bone, and is also located in the marrow cavities. All right, next, what is diplo? Diplo is number 14, and diplo is the central layer of spongy porous bony tissue between hard outer and inner bone layers of the cranium. So looking at this diagram, this is a cross-section of the skull. Whenever you have an opportunity to look at a skull in lab and you remove the superior portion, you'll actually see where diplo is located. So the diplo is actually this portion here. It's these spaces here. This is compact bone on the outside, but you also have a layer of compact bone on the internal surface of the skull. And in the middle, the spongy bone area, which is in between the periosteum, is where diplo is located. All right, what is the function of the hematopoietic or poietic tissue, which is also known as the red marrow? don't believe this information is provided. So the function is in infants, it produces medullary cavities and spongy bone. In adults, there's very little red marrow there, and red marrow in flat bones and some irregular bones is most active. Number 16, what are the bone cells and their functions? Excuse me. All right, so on this slide, it gives you a brief description and a figure to represent each one of the bone cells and their functions. The osteocytes, an osteoblast, and osteoclast are probably the most active types of bone cells that are present. Be sure that you know the difference in the blast, the clast, and the sites. If you know the ending of each, or because what's the term? I know prefix, whatever the term is for the part of the word that's at the end. Pay attention to those. On your sheet, I provided you with spacing and then a brief description of each. So A on number 16 is osteocyte. That is mature bone cells that maintains the bone's matrix. B is osteoblast. It's immature bone cell that secretes organic components of matrix. C is the osteoprogenitor, which are stem cells whose divisions produce the osteoblast. And the osteoclast are the multinucleated cells that secrete acid and enzymes to dissolve bone matrix. So osteocytes, again, are just your mature cells. They're the cells that are present. It's the cell that actually maintains the structure of bone. Osteoblasts are going to be the ones who are creating and secreting new matrix. So whenever new bone material is formed, it's coming from the blast. The osteoprogenitor are the stem cells that create the blast, and the osteoclasts are like the cleanup crew. As bone cells break down, they have to have a means to have them removed. So they secrete acids and enzymes to remove any old bone matrix. All right, next, what are bone lining cells? They are flat cells on bone surfaces where remodeling is not occurring. They help maintain the matrix. On the periosteal side, they are also called periosteal cells, and on the endosteal side, they're called endosteal cells. So I guess you would say they kind of work similarly to the osteoclast in that they just help maintain the structure of bone. Okay, so we just did 16 and 17. 18, what is the structural unit of compact bone? So the structural unit is the osteon. It can also be referred to as the Haversham system. The structural unit of compact bone is what gives bone its weight-bearing properties. Each matrix tube is referred to as a lamella, which is the structure here. The osteon is made up of these layers of lamella. So when you get a chance to look at your microscopic bone model in labs, you'll see all of these rings located on it. Those are your lamella. And then that circular structure is the osteon. Alrighty. The compact bone has two functioning structures. And what are they? The two functional structures are the central canal and the perforating canals, or Volkmann's canals. The central canal runs through the core of each osteon and contains blood vessels with an artery, a nerve, and a vein. Volkmann's canals, or perforating canals, lie at right angles along the sides of the bones and then connects blood vessels and nerve supplies to the periosteum. And then from there, the central canals and the medullary cavities. So in the diagram, it's providing you with illustrations to kind of give you the locations of each. The function of the osteocyte, number 21. Osteocytes occupy the lacunae at the junctions of the lamellae, canals, and the caniculi. Connect to the lacunae, to each other, and to the central canal. So basically, it's indicating that the central canal is the location again for the nerve, the vein, and the artery. And the osteocytes, which are these structures with the little purple dot, provide like a channel. That's the word I can use. A channel that allows the communication for the nervous system. It allows the nutrients and waste to be diffused through, so that nutrients can be received to the bone tissue. All right, 22. What are some additional structures of compact bone? And those structures are the interstitial lamellae and the circumferential lamellae. Both the interstitial and the circumferential, I'm gonna get it. Structures are internal. The first lies between the osteons to fill the space created by the circular osteons. And the second is just deep enough to the periosteum, and it extends around the entire circumference of the diaphysis of long bones. All right, 23. On page 4, describe spongy bone. So we spoke about spongy bone earlier on when we looked at Diplo. We stated that it is the porous bone located in between compact bone. It helps the bone resist stress. Spongy bone consists of irregularly shaped lamellae and osteocytes that are connected by caniculi. No osteons are present within spongy bones, but it does still receive its nutrients through the process of diffusion from the endosteum. All right, well, that concludes the lecture notes from Chapter 6, Part A. I will provide you with a Part B as soon as I am able to get it completed. I hope that you find this video helpful, and have a good evening.